Hello everyone, Bill Parish here from GTT Audio, and welcome to the channel today. Well, today we're going to talk about GTT Audio's mission statement, which has been posted on our webpage at the About Us since the mid-90s, and that's to offer high-end audio and video components that make a huge performance impact while delivering value at its price point. I think we've stayed true to that since the inception. And while we have a reputation of carrying expensive stuff, I'm going to argue that expensive gear can still offer a value. Value does not mean inexpensive. Value does not mean cheap. So I'm just going to go down the list. We've spent a little bit of time on this in the past. We can spend a lot more time in the future. I could take this into 5 or 6 episodes. I could sit and talk about each of the companies that we're going to talk about and everything that we carry for hours on each component. I mean, one thing is we know the components that we carry. We have good relationships with the manufacturers of the brands that we carry. We know it all in and out. But I just want to highlight a few, and well, the first and easiest one will be the one that we talked about 2 weeks ago, the Apple TVX. I mean, here we have the finest HDMI source in the industry. And you have millions of movies and series and TV programs, and you could subscribe to TV through it as well. It can be your single source. $2,500 bucks. Now, $2,500 bucks for the guy that's looking at a $300 Blu-ray player or the $99 Blu-ray player is like, well, that's crazy. Well, but the Blu-ray player is not going to give you the best performance. Now, this compared to a Kaleidoscape is dirt cheap. This Apple TVX compared to the Ferrugia processors and DVD players and Teranex and Snell and Wilcox gear that we used to use 15 years ago, let's just say that you couldn't buy a cable for this price. And here we're offering the finest HDMI source, which strips out and monitors noise, gives you a picture that we've never dreamed of before, the finest picture you've ever seen, and we're delivering this for people that are serious about video, that have purchased the OLEDs and purchased the projectors and really care about what their picture looks like. We're giving it to you for a drop in the bucket. So go back, watch couple episodes back. It's in the title, Apple TVX, if you don't know what I'm talking about. But it is the finest streaming source available. It's the finest HDMI source available. And I'll put a period in there, or exclamation mark. You know how YG used to do it back in the day. It ticked everyone off. The second thing I'm going to talk about, and I'll talk about the whole company here, Audionet. I mean, this stuff, you get ridiculous price to performance ratio on this stuff. Now, let's just talk about the big stuff. Let's talk about Stern at $48,750, and I think that's the price. And then the amplifiers at 105, the Heisenbergs at 105. So call it $150,000. little more for an amp and preamp combo. Well, anyone in their right mind knows that that's expensive. But I can tell you that Audionet's $30,000 amps, the maxes, I've put head-to-head against other brands, $100,000 and $150,000 amplifiers. And I'll take the Audionet every day of the week. You know, it's there's many amplifiers out there. Well, there's amplifiers out there at $250,000. There's amplifiers at 150 and amplifiers at 200. I think there's $300,000 amplifiers. So there's Audionet at $105,000 for a pair of amplifiers. Throw the preamp in at $150,000. You get the combo of what I would say is the best performing amplification in the world today. And it's a true value. It's a true value. Not only compared to price, but it's a value as far as the performance it gives as well. When something's the absolute best, it can offer a value. Auralic. We've talked about Auralic. Let's talk about one product in particular, the Auralic Aries G2.1. They've gone through different iterations. It used to be the G2, then it was G2.1. There's been some price increases. I believe it's $5,700 today. Now that can be a streamer, that can be an endpoint. You can get a lot of streamers and a lot of endpoints, a lot less expensive. You can also get a lot of streamers and a lot of endpoints a lot more expensive. You can spend $10,000 all day long. You can spend $20,000 and $30,000 easily. There's streamers above and beyond that. And I will say that the Auralic Aries G2.1 is at least equal, if not better, than all the things out there. I haven't tried every single one. That's why I say it how I did. But I have compared it to $20, $25, and $30,000 components. And I will tell you that I'm living with the Auralic Aries. I'm sitting in a room with $1 million stereo system. This system is insane. This room is insane. If I wanted to go from a $5,800 streamer to a $20,000 streamer, I mean the $15,000 difference compared to in the scope of $1 million stereo is nothing. I would be there. I have not found any streamer that can outperform the Aries G2.1. And I use it as an endpoint. So I take Rune to it, and then I take a USB cable into my DAC. I wouldn't put it there if I didn't think it was the best of the best. Last week we talked about integrated systems. And at the end, I thought and said that the Key 3 is the finest integrated system today. Now, we all know, what is it? There's a company, Denmark, Steinway, Lindorf and Sons, or something like that. It's part of Steinway, and I mean, they make $300,000 integrated systems. There's a lot of systems at $50,000, $75,000, $100,000. The Key 3 comes in at $19,000. How can that not be a value at its price point? Maybe you don't agree with me that it's the finest available today. It would still have to be one of the finest values today when you give its price-performance ratio. It is a very, very, very serious performer. Next, we'll get into Kabler Sascha Research. It's the only brand of cables that I carry. Well, I mean, why did I finish with or settle with one brand of cables? Well, I think they make 10 SKUs, and every single one of them, I mean, if there's one company that fits the same motto as us, is they are offering value at their price point. Their flagship cable, and they don't play games how some of these other companies do. There's so much for single-ended, so much for balance, so much for speakers. Whether it's a speaker cable, a balanced interconnect, or an RCA interconnect, it's the same price. There's the first meter price, and then there's an additional meter. So I would say that Kabler Sascha owns the top 3 cables in performance today. You got the Sensation, which will beat anyone else's reference. You've got the Elation, and then you've got the Realization. Let's take Realization for this explanation and comparison. So we've got $11,000, which is already insane, but $11,000 for the first meter and $2,000 each additional meter. So you want a 2 meter cable, 2 meter speaker cable is going to cost you $13,000. Insane, right? But it's a value at its price point. There's companies out there, well, all their competitors, I would say. Let's take Nordos, Anzus, Transparent, MIT, Synergistic. These are pretty good names. They're all their top cables. All their top cables. On a 2 meter cable is going to cost you at least $27,000, if not $37,000. And some of those are, there's crystal in there. I mean, some of those are out there at $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 for a 2 meter cable. And here I'm saying nothing competes to Realization. Nothing competes to Elation. And nothing competes to Sensation. There's a value at that price point. And then we get into the expander. The expander, this is, I think it's probably one of the most underpriced units in the market today. I mean, when you compare it to these other line conditioners out there by these other companies that are doing things, manipulating the signal, manipulating grounds, blowing up components, screwing with capacitance and impedance, you take the expander and stick it into your system, plug your system into it, it will have nothing negative and will be guaranteed to improve every system. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I can spend a whole episode on it. But this I've said in the past, and I'll say it again, every audio system needs a KS expander. Now, Kronos. Kronos Audio. Now, there's another thing that's underpriced. And Kronos has a reputation of being an expensive turntable, a very expensive record player. But there's no greater performance. I mean, we've seen all sorts of reviews on that. Well, you've heard of that shows. There's so many manufacturers that have purchased it. And they're underpriced for where they perform and what they do. I mean, there's our reference table, the Discovery, is out there at 100K. Meanwhile, you've got a Swiss company selling a turntable an anniversary turntable for $175,000. And the Sparta will run circles around it. In fact, it uses the same tone arm that the Sparta used to use. And the Sparta with arm is under $30,000. Now, if that's not a value at a price point, I'm not sure what is. Forget about the price. I just told you that the Sparta beats this other company's $175,000 turntable. The Kronos Pro, which we've still got quite a few pre-owned ones, I mean, the performance of that, there's... Harry Pearson said, the greatest turntable I never heard. I mean, talk about quiet. That's what he said in the review. These things are special and very, very, very low price points for the performance. And now, the Mola, and that entire line's of value. But let's look at the Tambaqui. How many times have I sat here on this channel and said, if you're looking for a DAC in the $10,000 to $100,000 price point, then you should be looking at a Mola Tambaqui. Well, I think that defines it, especially when it comes in at $13,500. Now that's expensive. But it's downright cheap compared to those $100,000 DACs. And for guys that don't know that those exist, there's plenty of them out there. With a little bit of digging, you can see that everything I say is true. I mean, this is a no BS zone. I mean, we don't do that at GTT Audio. I mean, I try to give it to you straight, and the Mola Tambaqui might be the best value in high-end audio today. It is extremely serious. We've spent episodes on it. We could spend more time on it, but I'll move on. I'll finish, trying to keep this episode short, we'll finish with YG Acoustics. I think YG Acoustics is an extreme value at its price point. They're expensive, there's no doubt about it. They have introduced a more accessible line, which should start rolling out here in the next couple of weeks, I hope. If you're out in Arvada, Colorado, out in Denver, give me a call. I'll set up a tour with you, and go take a tour of YG Acoustics. You'll be blown away. And then go tour other companies. There's no one as impressive and does the things that they do. I mean, these guys they machine their own drivers. They machine all the cabinets, of course. The amount of aluminum that they use in how they build a Sonia product is incredible. It's a box within a box, double wall construction. It's ridiculous. All the internal bracing, the crossover boards. I mean, they're machining the crossover. They use the thickest crossover boards in the industry. They machine all them. They do almost everything in-house. And while they make expensive speakers, they outperform the competitors at double their price point. With that, I'll get out of here, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.